Okay, hello everyone. I'm just going to talk through the work group plan and evaluation exemplar, which I've put together. Hopefully, just a short 3 to 4 minute video, just to talk through the different parts to it, so that is this full understanding of what's expected within them. The exemplar itself should be enough to support work group leads to identify the intended outcomes, the intended evidence, and the kind of planning schedule. But a little kind of video here might support that as well. So the first thing to note is I am just going to talk about the planning element. The evaluation will come in due course. I didn't want to overload. And therefore, all of the white cells are the ones we're concerned with. So white is for planning, blue is for evaluating. The next thing to note is that we're working on a particular theme. Now, I want to hold my hands up. I've obviously never been a work group lead, but I have worked very closely with Michael Anderson, who is a work group lead and has been a work group lead for Maths Hubs. So we've looked at some of their examples. But in order to do this and kind of create an exemplar, we've had to come up with a theme. And the theme we've gone with is pedagogies and strategies to support underrepresented groups, which includes low attainers. So with that in mind, I'll go through the different elements of the intended outcomes, intended evidence, and then we will look at the schedule. So there are 4 areas to look at when we're looking at intended outcomes and the evidence. The first one is pupil outcomes. So what is it we want the outcomes for pupils to be from this work group? The next one is department school approaches. So what do we want the outcomes to be for a computing department, for a curriculum, for school leadership, middle leaders, senior leaders, and the culture? What is it we want the outcomes to be around that? Practice development is more focused on the staff, the different types of staff that we're supporting in this. So yes, there'll be a lead from a school working as part of the work group, but the staff that's impacted within their school is also important. And then the last one, professional learning, is more about, with this work group, how are we taking the learnings, disseminating it, making sure that it doesn't just stop at the work group, it's fed into different communities, the discussion continues, the evidence is created, that sort of things, the professional learning outcomes. I don't really want to go into massive detail on every point. You can read the exemplar yourself. But just to say the way in which I've kind of put it together is, for each intended outcome, we think about 3 different outcomes, sorry, and then some linked evidence to each of the outcomes. It just so happens that for most there is, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. That won't always be the case, but it's just the case for the exemplar that we're making it very clear that this one is linked to this one. You might have 2 or 3 bits of evidence for that one element, and that's absolutely fine. Okay. So yeah, for pupil outcomes, we're looking at girls enjoying computing a little bit more Key Stage 3 and going out to take GCSE. We're looking at those with predicted grades 1 to 3 being more confident, and their predicted progress score for computer science is a positive one. And any gaps narrow between underrepresented groups and not. So that's the pupil outcome. That's what we want. And then there's different evidence, and you're all aware of evidence that you could use for that. And I put some examples there around student surveys, participant surveys, predicted grades, etc. For the next one, around department school, we're looking at the leadership team showing a great understanding that computer science is and can be for all, and not just for a select group of students. We're looking at the curriculum that is developed being a bit more inclusive, and it does cater for all levels, and that the school has plans to embed the learnings of the work group, to further develop the curriculum, to further develop the policies related to it. And again, don't need to go into each one, but there's different intended evidence of how we could show that that's been the case. Practice development is more about the staff, so we're looking at the staff that teach it, showing a greater understanding of unconscious bias, and that they understand the challenges that low attainers may have. That any non-specialist and non-Key Stage 4 teachers are showing that greater confidence in being able to plan and deliver inclusive lessons. And it's for everyone really to be embedding the pedagogies into the curriculum as they go. And the last one, a little bit slightly different, participants. So that's, the work group participants. They're developing the skills and working in this type of environment and reflecting on their colleagues and getting involved and kind of feeding back to this community throughout the year, the work group community. Being able to really develop a secure understanding from everyone within a work group, and try and disseminate and share the learnings both within their schools and widely, STEM community as a minimum. And of course, join the STEM community and share the different learnings of the work group. And there's obviously different evidence that could be in there. I could have put more in, but it is just an exemplar. So that's the starting point. This is what we're trying to achieve, and this is what we're saying would be good evidence to say that we have achieved it. Obviously, when I come to the evaluation point, we can talk about what that looks like. But in some cases, it's providing this evidence. In some cases, it is written form of what's been said within the meeting. So this can be a sort of jotter as we go through. So someone said this, and we note that down as a work group lead that that's been said or that's been shared. All of that there then helps fill in the kind of evaluation down the bottom, which is the last thing you do. But again, I will do more on that when we come to that part of the video or another video. Now, the second part of it, once we've done the intended outcomes, is the schedule. This builds on the kind of very basic schedule that advisors may have put together in here, which outlines the different sessions that are going to be involved. This goes into a lot more detail. And, one of the sessions, which is a task here, for instance, is just one line of a task. When you get into work group plan, that may be split into 3 or 4 different things that different people are going off to do. So I've always think of the work group as there's touch points. So there is a meeting where we agree things, people go off, and there is time in which things are done. So that could be some research, that could be some observations, that could be trialing the things within the research, but things occur. And then we come back to a touch point, which people share what's went well, what hasn't gone well, what the research states, to be used the next time we go out to trial. So it's a kind of meeting, do, meeting, do, meeting, do type approach. And what we've got is this different setting will tell you what's going on. So if it's a meeting, it's face-to-face meeting, then it should be very clear of when that's going on. The other bit is, what is the purpose? What are we trying to get out of that? And again, I'm not going to go in every single one. And I want to state that this is just one of the this would be 2 to 3 months probably before we go and do more. I didn't have enough lines, or I don't need to go into a full work group, but once you've got the idea in terms of an exemplar. So what we've got is an initial face-to-face work group. What we've always said is that the work group initial meeting, if possible, should be face-to-face, because that we know that brings the greatest impact. We know that from the Maths Hub work. And for the purpose for that is obviously to agree the theme, agree the intended outcomes, and schedule all of the meetings of when we can come back in, so that the schools could, the teachers within the schools can go and make sure that they're available at times. Okay, it might be not fully ironed out, but we can certainly put a plan of the weeks that we're going to try and do. Then we've got, following that, a week later, a remote meeting just to finalise the intended outcome. So they might have started putting this all in here in the first meeting, but it's just to kind of make sure everyone is happy with what we're doing. Then there is a bit here about curriculum review, because remember, this one's about inclusivity and making sure that it's suitable for underrepresented groups, both low attainers and girls being the focus, and therefore looking at the curriculum, what's coming up soon, which units of work can we look to amend and start to trial some of the things that comes out of the research, some of the things that we already know are true. So they go ahead and do that at school. There's a bit here about a research element, and we've got certain people going off to do the research. So on this one here, where everyone's reviewing their own curriculum, that makes sense that everyone's doing that. Here, where what we're seeing is 3 people are going to go off and do some research, or and then 3 of them are going to go off and do this training. Now, this is a CPD that the NCC offers. This is not happening inside of the cluster, it's happening outside of the cluster. So we're essentially saying this course is really good for understanding the bit around low attainers, and therefore let's send a few of you off to disseminate back to the work group about what we should trial. So some research, some training, and then we have a meeting to kind of collate all that together. And then they go off to trial, meeting to reflect on what's gone on. And in fact, we've kind of split that up. So we'll have 2 meetings in this scenario where 3 of them will report back, and then the next meeting, the other 3 will report back. And the cycle would then kind of start again, wherever you want to start. What's the next phase? So we've done this bit of work. What do we want to achieve next? And that would be a discussion for the work group. So there might be a 3rd meeting there to agree next steps, or that might be actually part of that last meeting that's in there. And then the whole process starts again, essentially. So as I said, that's probably like 1/3 of the whole work group. There would be time in which we would come back in those lines. So if you do want to grow the number of cells, which seems likely based on what I've written here, it is dead easy. You just right click and insert rows. You will probably have to make it neat, just merge them, and that's fine. And you'll have to drag down some of the formatting, etc. Dead easy to do. And so that's absolutely fine. So I think that's about it for now. So hopefully the video's been useful. The exemplar is obviously more useful than this video, but essentially as a work group lead, you are thinking about, and you're working with the schools on this, but you're thinking about what is it we want to achieve in terms of the pupils? What is it we want to achieve in terms of the curriculum, in terms of the leadership? What is it we want to achieve for our staff? And what are we going to do with all this professional learning? And what is the evidence that we're trying, that will help support what we're trying to do and show? And then essentially planning how we're going to do that. The planning might not be finished and full from the off, because some of the planning might occur, as I say, you might want to do it in waves. So this is like a first wave. There might be further planning that occurs later on. Okay, so that's absolutely fine as long as it's clear there's a lot going on over the next few months. Okay, I'll stop it there. Any questions, just reply to this thread or just drop me an email.